Hello there, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Steven. In this video, we're going to walk through using the PMT or payment function in Excel, how you can map out a few different scenarios and kind of calculate out the true cost of the loans you're paying back. So you're probably familiar with when you go to apply for like an auto loan or a personal loan or something like that. You're going to be presented with several different options. So usually it's going to be like a shorter term with like a lower interest rate, and then it kind of scales up from there. You know, maybe add a year, you get a little bit higher rate. You know, maybe you get add a couple of years, you get a much lower monthly payment, but a much higher interest rate. And so what they don't tell you, though, is they don't tell you the true cost of these loans, which is the total interest you're going to pay back. Meaning, if you're borrowing, let's say, $30,000, we'll use that number in this scenario. If you're paying back $30,000, if you add interest on top of that, you could potentially be paying back as much as $35,000, $40,000 when it's all said and done, depending on the interest rate and the amount of months or years you're paying it back over. And that's the part they don't tell you. All they tell you is, oh yeah, the longer you go, the less your payment is, and therefore you can fit it in your budget. Well, but there's more to it than that. And that's what this video is gonna show you. So we're gonna walk through a few different scenarios now, just kind of model this out a little bit and show you how you can do this for yourself. So I did do another PMT video. This is kind of an offshoot of that, showing debt consolidation modeling. So looking at a scenario of paying back a certain amount of money with a high interest credit card and then using a personal loan or something to consolidate that debt and save interest and how much you can save. So this is kind of an offshoot of that. It's a similar video. This is going to be more kind of like if you're planning on taking out a loan and if you kind of know what your options are going to be ahead of time, you can figure out what option might work best for you based on what you're willing to pay and also the amount of interest you're going to potentially save by taking a shorter term. So I don't know how familiar that you are with PMT. My other video is going to be linked in the description down below. That one's maybe a little more kind of introductory, showing how to use PMT. I'm going to kind of go through this a little faster, but either way, I think this video is going to be a good learning experience for a lot of people. So we'll just put our little headers here. We'll do scenarios 1 through 4. So now we got to put our inputs. So for PMT, you need the balance, the principal balance, or like the amount you're borrowing. So they call it present value, but it's just the amount you're borrowing. So we'll do that one first here. We'll just put let's say borrowed amount. Essentially the total amount that you're going to be borrowing from the bank to pay back. So we'll just use $30,000 in this scenario. So this is actually across the board. This number won't change. All it's going to change here is going to be our interest rate and the amount of years we're paying this back. So the next one is going to be years to pay back. So we're going to we'll start with 3 years to start, and we'll just go 4, 5, and 6. So we got kind of our short-term scenario 1, 3 years. Then our longer-term scenario 4. And we'll go through this one by one and show you how the interest really builds the longer you go. So now you're probably familiar with like an or annual interest rate and APR. That's how they usually show it to you. If it's 6%, that's an annual number. But interest does compound monthly, not annually. You pay it every month, 12 times a year. So you do need a monthly interest rate. So all you do is just take the annual number and divide it by 12. And that's your monthly interest rate. So we'll do both here just for the sake of familiarity. So let's say here in scenario 1, it's going to be, let's say you get, 5.5%, something that's below market because you're taking a shorter term. That's typically how this works. So let's do 5.5%. So now the monthly interest is just simply dividing that by 12. So we'll just take 5.5 divided by 12. Now we'll format it. Okay, so 0.46% per month. That's what you're going to pay on this outstanding principal per month that goes straight to interest. So we'll drag this across and we'll start plugging in more numbers here. So I don't want to build up too much interest here just to show you how quickly this can build even with short, kind of small increments. So let's say this goes to 5.75. Oops, I gotta format this. Let's try that again. So let's say in scenario 2 now it goes to 5.75%, adding another year of payback. So let's say we go to 6 in scenario 3. So now we've only added 0.5%, but we've also added 2 years to pay back too. So you'll see how this builds when we get to the final step. So let's say in this last scenario now, quite often the longer you go, the more they increase the rates on you. So let's say now you go to 6.5. So before we were only increasing by 0.25%, now we're going to go half a percent. So now in total, you've added 1 more percent per year in interest, but you've added 3 years more of payback, right? Okay. So now from here, what we can do is we can calculate the monthly payment and also the interest paid off of that. So interest paid is going to be our own calculation, not a PMT, but you need PMT to get there, is the point. So this is the one they are going to show you is the monthly payment. Now this is kind of their selling point, is always, oh well, if you only add 6 more months or another year, it's going to drop your payment, $100 a month, right? And that's attractive to people. Well, that's only telling you a part of the story. So we can use PMT here to get the monthly payment. So we need our rate, which is going to be our monthly rate, because we're doing it by monthly payback periods. So next step here is NPER. That's going to be, again, our monthly payback periods. So we're using years here. So all we got to do is just take our 3 years times 12 to get our months. And now PV is just our borrowed amount, so it's just basically our balance, right? What are we borrowing? That's all that is. So now so that's going to be $906 a month, rounded, over 3 years to pay back $30,000, okay? So we can drag that across now to all the different scenarios. And so like I mentioned earlier, you see the payment drops pretty considerably, right? You had 1 year, you only had another quarter of percent of interest, but dropped your payment almost $200 a month. And that's a good draw for a lot of people. That's a good selling point for people who give out loans, because they know that people are just simply looking at the monthly payment and how it fits into their current monthly budget. So this is typically how they do it, is they try to push you towards a longer term because you're going to save on the payment. But you're going to see now the true cost of this is going to be exponentially higher than this in the interest you're going to pay. So I'm actually going to flip these signs around because I don't want a negative payment. So let me just redo this. So to calculate the total interest paid over the life of the loan, all we got to do is figure out, so our monthly payment times the number of years or months to pay back minus the borrowed amount. The difference that you pay above and beyond the borrowed amount is going to be straight interest. There's nothing else that would go into that. So total interest paid. So let's just do the formula here. So we take the monthly payment times, put this in parentheses, so 3 times 12 to get our total months. This will give us our total number paid. And we want to see now the change, though, from this number to the borrowed amount. So all we do is we can put this in parentheses and subtract it from the $30,000. So this is now where it really gets interesting. This is the whole point of this entire video. Now, this is the true cost of this loan. So in scenario 1 here, so you're going to pay, if you borrow $30,000 and pay it back over 3 years at a 5.5% interest rate, you're going to pay $2,600 in interest, or specifically $2,611.57 total of interest, okay? That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but now watch as I scale it to the next scenario and build up. It gets exponentially bigger. So we'll now just copy this over to scenario 2. We're actually going to be calculating a change along the way too, so let's do that also. So change in interest. So now from scenario 2 to scenario 1, so we only added 1 more year of payback and only 0.25% of interest, well, annually, not even monthly, 0.25% annually. We're going to pay another $1,000 of interest in 1 more year, right? That's quite a bit of money. Now let's keep going with this. So now we're going to go over now to scenario 3. So now we're going to pay $4,800 of interest, or more specifically $4,799.04, by adding again only 1 more year, but now again another 0.25%, or over scenario 1, 0.5% more of annual interest. And that's now a difference back to, well, actually I want to go back to scenario 1. So I'm going to lock this one. So I want to see the change from the latter scenarios to scenario 1. So from here now, we're going to see the change in interest for scenario 3 now is over $2,000 of interest more by adding 2 years and another 0.5% over the initial scenario 1 of 3 years. So you see how this builds and builds and builds, right? So now we'll go ahead and do scenario 4 now. So now we're up to $6,300 of total interest paid. And that's over a 6-year loan, and that's now another only 1% more annually of interest. Only 1%. Now that's now changed to scenario 1 of $3,697.87. So again, this is just exponentially growing and growing with every year. And I mean, the interest is a factor too. But I went pretty smaller. They can really scale this up. You can see it sometimes go from 5.5 to 6 to 7 to, I mean, it can really get up big. I kept it small just for the sake of showing the example to you. I didn't want to use some extreme example, but this is probably being generous. They're not going to give you probably a 1% difference by adding 3 years. They're going to give a lot more than that. So that's the true cost of your loans. And hopefully this was a good learning experience for a lot of you and a good way for you to do this for yourselves. It's just a matter of knowing how this stuff works and knowing how to calculate it. Now, again, the PMT was the crux of this, but the interest paid was another calculation above and beyond that. So you do got to keep that in mind, that you got to build this one for yourself. It's not an Excel function, but still important to know. This is something that can make a lot of people, I think, make a lot more informed decisions when they're taking out loans just by doing a simple Excel sheet, right? I mean, this took us, 10 minutes, 12 minutes? It's not particularly hard to do. You just got to know how to do it. So we're going to conclude the video there, guys. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching the videos. I'm going to do more stuff like this. This is actually, like I said, an offshoot of another PMT video I did. I'm going to link that in the description down below. Shoot me comments down below, questions, comments, whatever. I appreciate all that. Thank you very much.